So I'm stood here now and I do feel like I'm at the end of my neurodivergence journey, right? It's been 6 years since 2019 when I got an autism assessment, and it did nearly end me. I kind of got my head around that and wanted to go a bit further. And then on the Ride Companion podcast, where I said about having autism, I went back on there and asked if anyone would be prepared to give me an ADHD diagnosis, which I was 100% certain that I had. And it was Larissa here that reached out. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
From Autism Oxford, where I've had all these assessments done. And, you know, you reached out, I think because you wanted to help me, but also really because you have a mad interest, as I do, about how neurodiversity can affect sport, how we do sport, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're studying it, right?
Yeah, so I guess from my perspective, I also have ADHD, and I also always engage in sports that really, like, I want to say high risk, but, you know, I like to rock climb, I like to snowboard, I like to ride my motorcycle, and I think that I kind of had a question about how many people in these kind of outdoor sport communities are actually neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Because as an occupational therapist, I'm kind of noticing that, you know, we tend to have differences in our sensory system and our sensory profile, and that actually can be advantageous to us.
Yeah.
And kind of the ADHD being almost a benefit because we're good at like positive risk taking and how that impacts our performance. And then we kind of had conversations around how, you know, we know that from a regulation perspective, movement is really good when you're ADHD.
I feel good when I've moved, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pushing weights, anything makes me calmer, which is
Yeah.
probably how I got. I think maybe now I know I'm hyperactive. I think the one thing that can make me settle is to exercise,
Exactly, yeah.
but almost to an extreme amount, which is harder as I've got older because my body can't take it.
Yeah.
But that, you know, that is calming.
Yeah, and we know that, you know, exercise in general for everyone is good for your mental health, but there's an extra element when you're neurodivergent. We have different sensory needs, so we might need stronger feedback. So we're kind of engaging in maybe sports that have a little bit more sensory feedback when we engage in it. So I think, you know, going to the gym is fun, but we need something stronger than that, right? So I think about myself. Yeah, going to the gym is fun, but I'd rather be suspended off a cliff doing rock climbing in a really intense situation because that really feeds into my nervous system.
Because of the danger.
Bit
Risk,
of danger,
the risk.
but I think it's also kind of it plays to all the what my sensory system needs to feel regulated. So I think yes, movement is good for everyone in exercise, but there's a little bit more when it comes to neurodivergence, right? We have something called our vestibular system. Vestibular and our proprioceptive systems, and that proprioceptive. Yeah, and that's kind
What
of.
are they? Brain systems.
They're the vestibular is more about kind of the inner ear balance, kind of understanding where you are, and then the proprioception is kind of like that feedback that you get from like your muscles and joints. And we tend to have.
Brain gets when you say your feedback. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to understand it.
Yeah, so we want to. So you sometimes with neurodivergence, we tend to have differences. Right, so we can either be really sensitive or even hyposensitive. So we need more movement to get more feedback to feel regulated, right?
To feel regulated, to feel normal.
Oh, let's not use the word normal.
No, I know,
happy. To feel happy.
Yeah, to feel calm.
To feel clear-headed, to feel like you're in a regulated state.
The word I would use there would be, if I'm calm, my head's not cluttered.
Yeah.
My body's hurting a little bit, I'm aching, I'm sat on the settee and I can actually watch telly.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, that's what I get maybe if I go out for like, I don't know, a 2-hour bike ride or something.
So if you think about it, sometimes, you know, I think with neurodivergence, we always tend to look at people, when we think about sensory systems, I think a lot of people think about hypersensitivity. They don't like lots of movement. They don't like loud noises. They don't like...
I don't like light.
So if you think about it, if you're like in like a sensory deprivation tank, walking through life, that's really dysregulating, not really understanding, you know, I'm currently fidgeting because I need that proprioceptive feedback all the time to feel regulated. So that's why I kind of seek out sports that kind of feed to that.
And that's why I ride bikes.
That's why,
I'm obsessed with bikes.
Yeah. I think there's also an element when you...
I like them, they make me feel good.
Of course they do, yeah. And I think there's also an element when it comes to like the extreme sports that we talk about. You're always like usually out in nature. So I think it also plays to a lot of sensory needs there.
So I actually now, and we haven't spoken about this before, but you probably hit the nail on the head there. The one thing that I've always, why I got into mountain biking, because I did mountain bikes before it, it was almost to go on it was
to be outside.
To be outside, to be on my own, to be, like, I have all my best ideas when I'm out on a bike ride in the woods like that. Yeah. And actually there's nowhere I'd almost rather be than that's outside. Like, outside is, I'm always outside, and I like, if I'm riding a bike then it's why is that then? Because indoors just...
I think there.
I love being outside.
Yeah, I think there's lots of reasons. I mean, I think everyone would benefit for being outside in nature. That studies, that research is there. Being in the fresh air, being in the sunlight is good for us. But I think there's also, if you consider, indoors can create a lot of like false lighting.
I don't like the light indoors. No, that's right.
If sound is
I already
bouncing
feel
off the
calmer
wall, yeah, it could
being
also
out
be
here.
that nature just is better for our sensory system if that meets your sensory profile criteria. So it could just be that we're just happier outdoors because it's just better for us.
Yeah, that's how it feels.
Yeah.
And as far as like sport goes, right? So I know I've got hyperactivity, that gives me energy. I know I've got hyper focus sometimes,
Yeah.
but I also know that I've got attention deficit. Now, and I also know that I've got autism.
Yeah.
So like I used to turn up at a World Cup race,
Yeah.
and if the track had a load of pedaling in it, as I said, I'd be like, and it would be a very black and white decision. Right, I can't do well here. I haven't really trained. I'm not in shape. There's a load of pedaling. Forget it. And I would just go off.
Yeah.
I would actually go and be the devil for the week because I was unhappy about being there. I'd just party for the week. That was my kind of way out of it. So what I'm saying is like, maybe I would have only got there because I had autism. So I had this focus on riding bikes my whole life, and the hyperactivity gave me energy of it. But then it feels like the ADHD can also be a massive disadvantage. Does it, like, is there certain levels of autism, ADHD that can make you better at things like, because I know that things like fast, things like downhill, then surely my brain, I can make quick decisions, I can react quick, right? That's how it feels. But is it an advantage or a disadvantage to be neurodivergent in sport? What
I think it really depends. But
on the sport and on your...
I think naturally people tend to gravitate towards things that they're good at. Right, so I know that obviously you're good at mountain biking, you like it.
But it took me only because it wasn't like only because I've worked at it.
Yeah.
Like, I rode motorbikes since I was 3 years old. It's not like I'm naturally good at biking.
Yeah.
I've just done a lot of it.
Yeah, and I think it's.
But those hours I've put in might be down to being hyperactive.
Yeah.
And being obsessed with it.
And I think as well, like I think about when I'm doing like some rock climbing or when I'm doing like a lot of like backcountry snowboarding, or especially when I'm on the motorcycle. I do feel like my head is actually clearer, and I think a lot of people without ADHD don't understand that we have a lot of like mental chatter and clutter constantly going on.
No, I feel...
Yeah.
So when I do a motorbike enduro or a downhill run, well, not so much a downhill run, but like in commentary, say, that chatter goes away. I'm clear.
Yes.
And that day of a broadcast, it goes away because I've got one clear focus. And actually, even in a broadcast, so when I start commentating, that noise is there, and it takes me a long time, but all of a sudden it all goes.
Yeah.
And same in a motorbike race, or not so much in a downhill race because they're so short that I do remember always fighting to, like, why am I hearing this? I'm 30 seconds into a run, all this noise should have gone now and I should be here.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I couldn't remember my run because, or a weird thing to say, like, as in, I was so focused I was on autopilot, and I could achieve that, I would go better.
Yeah.
But it was very rare. And it would take a perfect track and stuff to really focus me in.
Yeah.
But then I think I could outperform what a normal person would. The neurodivergence might come in and out me and make me extra good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
I see it about there as well. You see neurodivergent people in sport. I see a lot of it right now. I know about it. Like a lot of people at the top have it, and a lot don't.
And it could be that level of hyperfocus that you've spoken about when you had your feedback with Kim, that we do have this ability to kind of tune everything out and hyperfocus on what some people call special interest, which for us is our sport, right? So you're putting everything that we have into it because it's so important to us, and that makes us really good when we're in that state of hyperfocus.
Yeah.
But like you said, we can't always get there, right? And it's unpredictable when we're going to have the hyperfocus. We can't usually control it or predict
I
it.
spent my whole mountain bike career trying to recreate how I got to the start line on a good day, and I still couldn't. Like, what did I do that day? Why was I top 5 that day? What was in play? And I feel like neurodivergent people can be incredible.
Yeah.
And they can be better than anyone, right?
Yeah.
But for me personally, the consistency is not there. So on the right day, I can perform and beat everyone. But I'm never going to be, overall in a year, I'm never going to be there. And I see people that definitely aren't neurodivergent, people that are flat calm, people that, quite honestly, quite boring. Like, well, they, you know what I mean? Like, they're pretty mellow, but you wouldn't often associate that with maybe being a top downhiller, but they're so flat calm that nothing bothers them, and they can approach those races the same way every time, and they have, it's mad to see it, like how how someone with mad neurodivergence and someone who has got none whatsoever and is just a flat, calm person can both be at the same point at the top of a downhill race or something, you know?
And I think this is where maybe it could be a disadvantage to be neurodivergent. Because we have different sensory systems, we can be triggered more easily.
I feel like I would have, I don't know if I'd have ever got on the start line, but I do feel that I would have definitely been better, more consistent if I didn't have all this shit going on.
And I think maybe something to consider is if you had known about your neurodiversity, would you have better understood what you needed to be regulated? Because maybe you were starting races not realizing that you were a bit dysregulated.
Of course. Yeah.
I think
fighting to get normal.
Yeah.
As in get a mental state that I might have worked. Yeah, it was a battle, and it never didn't. Yeah, dark goggles on, everything, just trying to shut myself down. I still couldn't ever get there.
Yeah.
Not very often.
Yeah, so I guess that's the advantage that I guess a neurotypical person might not struggle as much with their dysregulation. Not that they can't get dysregulated, but for us, it's a little bit harder, right? We're more sensitive in some areas. So
especially on a race day under all the pressure and on the day of actual competition, right?
Yeah, and then also if you consider the autism part of your neurodivergence, right? There's kind of a fear of masking, that fear of like being watched can also kind of impact your sport. So I think sport is
massively.
But I think there's kind of two elements to sport, right? There's the sports that you do for yourself, and then there's the competition, right? I think you have to have everything go right to be able to compete. But I imagine on a day you're not competing, everything is perfect because there's one less element that's triggering you.
It's it's not often I don't enjoy myself when I'm practicing or training. I have a good day always when I ride my bike. That's right. But if you put me in a sporting situation, it would actually turn very negative, and I would turn very negative. And like I said, you know, I had a terrible name for drinking, partying.
Yeah.
Because I got to a track and it's like flat, and I don't want to be here. Yeah. So what am I going to do? This isn't what I see as.
Yeah.
And I guess, and it's certainly something I know I can't compete on. So why am I even here?
Yeah, and I guess as an occupational therapist, we have to consider the environment. So even though the occupation of, let's say, you riding bikes is the same, the environment is very different, and that impacts you very differently, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we all race downhill, but people around me that were flat, calm, maybe not neurodivergent, would be like, shut up.
Yeah.
Stop tearing us down. This is the track, and they have a mental strength where they can just soak that up and perform at their very best on it, and that's all they can do. But I wasn't even able to even be anywhere even interested in trying to perform.
Yeah, and
so it did trip me up in those respects. But on the right day, on the right track, everything comes together, and I reckon you can be a little bit more.
And it's like the best day of your life.
Absolutely the best day of your life, and that's how. I mean, that's not just in sport. That's generally. You have good and bad days with this neurodivergent stuff.
Yeah.
That's right. If everything lines up in a day, or like when I'm at work, I've got plenty of work in front of me. I'm building towards a broadcast. I'm as happy as I can ever be. I love working, you know. It's all laid. It's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as far as neurodivergency in sport goes, then absolutely at the start of that journey, right? Like it's not really been studied. People don't know much about it, even though sport is absolutely full of autistic, of ADHD people doing very well, winning gold medals at the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, we do know that there are some athletes who have come out about their neurodivergence, also like yourself. That's kind of why we also talked about doing this whole process, was to kind of get people to understand their neurodivergence and be happy about it. And that's been really positive for you.
Yeah, it's been the most positive thing I've done.
Yeah.
Well, look where I was. I mean, you didn't see me, but I was done. I mean, I barely left the house for 2 years after I found out I had autism. Like I was cooked.
Yeah.
And now I'm here. Well, thanks to you, I'm here and I can talk about it. I know I've got ADHD. I can embrace that. I don't care.
Yeah. And
I don't care. I've got autism. It's pretty much normal these days.
And I love talking about it. I've noticed myself that when I talk about my neurodiversity, people are just naturally like, oh, actually, I think I have that. Or I've been diagnosed for 5 years. I just never told everyone. So I like to talk about it, you know, using my lived experience at work. I think it's really good, especially for our communities in the outdoor sport.
Yeah.
There's so many of us who are neurodivergent who either don't know or don't want to share it out of a fear of being stigmatized.
Yeah, a lot of people probably know it a little bit, like I had a feeling on, but yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't ever want to tackle it head on. I wouldn't have done. I never, but situations made me feel like I needed to find out. I did. It crushed me.
Yeah.
But now I'm back, and the start of coming back was telling someone, and I realised that made me a bit better. So then I told someone else, and then I went on a podcast and told everyone. And then, as hard as that was actually the very catalyst to me recovering actually,
Yeah.
and it was because I was sad about it. I was gutted about it all, you know. And then I had lost the World Cup on top, and that kind of triple fucked me, if you like. You know,
Yeah.
it was all like boom, 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 and it's taken me a long time to climb out, but I have.
Yeah.
I have, and I'm pumped with that, you know. And now I know I'm autistic. I got ADHD.
Yeah.
It's all good.
And I think just naturally, like as a society, we're still learning about neurodivergence. You know, even 5-10 years ago, the research wasn't there. So to answer your other question about
Yeah, it's getting better and better for us.
sports, yeah, there is some research around neurodivergence in sports, but there's nothing about how occupational therapists can help people who are neurodivergent within the sports, kind of using sports as a therapeutic tool.
And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Sport has been my crutch. It's my go-to. It's the
Yeah.
one thing in life, motorbikes or bicycles, that is the one thing in life that I can always go to, and I'll always get out of shit. Wherever I am in life, that's always going to make me happy.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that explains pretty much my entire life.
Yeah. So I guess from my perspective, I kind of want to explore that, you know, with other athletes, you know, doesn't even need to be professional athletes, but how does sports help people who are neurodivergent? I think
it's focus, it's the movement, it's the
everything.
For me, with the hyperactivity, it definitely calms. It feeds that a bit. I'm gonna go for a bike ride today now.
Yeah. Could have gone on a motorcycle here.
Well, yeah, and that's right. And then we'll be calmer for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I definitely notice the days I'm on my motorcycle, I'm just so much happier. The rest of the day is just so much easier.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a lot of it's just the noise for me, the vibration, the feeling. It's all that, right? It's everything.
It's about feeding into that sensory need that you know, your sensory profile that you need. So yeah, I think sports are really, really important.
I personally think for anyone in life, neurodivergent or not, sport should, to me, it's like the main thing in life. To compete and be good at sport, whatever sport, it doesn't matter. But to have that in your life is just a very really good, strong sort of pathway for, you know, it's good, isn't it? Everything's there. It's a focus. It's energy, weight used. It's good. No, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool.
So I'm actually kind of working on a program right now to help children and young persons who are neurodivergent and maybe have additional needs like dyspraxia, who need that regulation. And I'm actually trying to create like a rock climbing group for them to help them get into the sport and help them with, you know, emotional regulation, all those things that you've been chatting about.
Yeah, because it'll help them massively, not just in rock for their life, which is the important bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. It really is. Yeah, it's been incredible, and you know, thank you so much to you, because it was you that reached out and got me in to Oxford Autism to have all these to have this ADHD assessment. And like, I'm not going to sign off on it, but I'm happy now again. I've come through it. I know what I got. It helps to know. You're not going to change it, right? Like, you can't. I have got autism. I can't change that. So all those anxieties or whatever are always going to be there. But the fact is now that I sort of can see them a little bit. But overall, I know who I am again.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people.
That's it.
That
it's fine.
Probably assume or have a good idea about the neurodivergence, but they're like, well, I know, why do I need an assessment? Why do I need the diagnosis? And I think, like you said,
I needed it. Otherwise I felt like I was living my life as a lie.
Yeah.
And and also because of who I am and how I am, it's good that people know, because then they do take into account that, well, that ain't going to work for him, and he just told you that. And instead of thinking he's a dick, they probably go, well, yeah, look, this is how it is. We are a bit different.
Yeah, and I think the diagnosis is extremely important to give yourself the validation, that permission to kind of be kinder to yourself or to make the adjustments that you need. And there's also a practical sense, having a diagnosis, you know, you can bring this to your workplace, you can get reasonable adjustments under the Disability Act. But I think as well, I think it's just good to kind of have that awareness, right? Getting a diagnosis actually shows that, like, there's a lot of people who have it, right? It isn't just a small pocket of the population.
No, autism is normal.
Yeah.
Someone said that to me. That's the one thing that really turned it. Someone said, I was like, I'm doing this tomorrow, la, la, la. What are you worried about? It's normal these days.
Yeah.
And actually autism it's everywhere. It's pretty normal. It's definitely nothing to be scared of. You might feel better. I would say people would feel better talking about it. That was definitely, for me, that worked.
Yeah.
No, it's been incredible, and you know, I ain't going to turn my back on it like completely, but I am there, and I want to go forwards again now. I've spent sort of 5-6 years exploring and trying to come to terms with myself, but now I am. So let's go forwards again and do something cool.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, they're happy. Like you got your ADHD diagnosis. You're good. You're happy. I think for a lot of people, who didn't have that long journey, right? They still need to understand themselves. And this is where we kind of say, maybe you do need to see kind of a therapist.
Yeah.
Or maybe,
It does help.
yeah, or maybe
And
just see an OT.
And I do understand myself more, but exactly not fully. But now I've at least got stuff to work with. But I know why this is. So that, yeah, it's well interesting. No, and I couldn't have done it without your help, without all these assessments and stuff. So
Yeah.
thank you,
You're
Larissa.
welcome.
It's been thanks very much.
Yeah.
It's just been an unbelievable thing to go through and do, and let's hope other people can sort themselves out the same, because that's the main thing.
Yeah. Amazing.
Sick.